We are on the precipice of a new age of AI, artificial intelligence, and what that means for humanity. It is getting scary. And I'm not the only person that has said that for sure, but we just want to talk a little bit today about what does that mean as far as being a Christian in this age of AI. Did you know that the Donna Howell Show now has merchandise? I am currently wearing the Theology Isn't Just for Boys royal purple hoodie. But we have a lot of other products coming in this line, as well as some other fun products very soon. We have hoodies, t-shirts, sweaters, bags, cups, stickers, and more. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to see all of the merch options. Now, back to the Donna Howell Show. To talk with me about that, of course, my co-host, Brittany. What's up, Brittany?
Thanks, good to be here. AI is something that was kind of not talked about, and then just over the last 2 years is getting more and more prevalent in our daily lives. There was the movie I, Robot with Will Smith, and that always seemed like a very distant future where we would have little robots that were our assistant. But now with how fast AI is moving, it's probably going to be something that we see within the next 5 to 10 years, I would say personally, is that people will have a robot. It will, of course, be for people who are rich at first, and then it always trickles its way down to becoming a normal household thing. And maybe it won't be what we've assumed it will be, where it's a physical robot, but you know, we already have things like Siri. We have like Google's AI, we have Amazon's AI, where it's already in your house. You say, hey, blah, 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 and it comes up and answers your questions. It makes lists for you. There's even certain AIs that can call and make doctor's appointments for you, pretending to be your assistant, and they can answer questions for you that you've already said.
Right.
And something interesting that I don't think a lot of people realize is with the start of 2025, they're claiming this is the start of a new generation. So we had, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and now from 2025 above, it's going to be called Gen Beta. And the children born in this era will have never experienced life without AI.
Right.
There is no going back. Even if you're the youngest Gen Alpha, there were some part of your years, even if you weren't aware of them because you were a baby, where AI did not exist.
Right.
And now the ones growing up, that is all they will ever know. They will grow up with it in school. They will grow up with it in their jobs. They'll probably grow up with the question of what job will I get, because AI is taking all the jobs or has already taken it. There's going to be AI degrees. A lot of colleges right now are scrambling to put something together so that they could be the first to offer some kind of AI technological degree, like an IT type of degree. And it's also like an arms race, like we saw with the Cold War, of who's going to have the biggest AI and what is it going to mean. And, with President Trump just becoming inaugurated at the time of this filming, he's announced a new AI program through the government called Stargate, which, Stargate, that's kind of an interesting choice of words to pick for something like artificial intelligence. So yeah, AI is all over the place. I'm in college right now, and as of recording this, it's kind of like the Wild West for what is allowed in school and what's not. It's kind of up to the teacher to say if you're allowed to use AI or not. One of my own professors has said that she doesn't want us to use it and you'll get in a lot of trouble, and it's because of the ethical reasons. AI could be taking somebody else's work and not crediting them, or it could also be destroying our environment, because it really does take huge energy plants to power things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, which is Twitter's AI, and then there's also Rufus, which is Amazon's AI. There's all these different AIs that are kind of running their own thing, but they take a ton of power to even run. And the past couple of days at the time of filming this, China has come out with their own AI, which is just as good as ChatGPT, but actually doesn't use as much power. So right now there's just all these different voices, and everybody's kind of wondering, what is the future of this?
Yeah, and what's funny is that to some degree, I'm shocked to see just how intelligent has been expected to be. It's one thing to be Tom's daughter, and hear about it your whole life. This is coming, this is coming, this is coming.
Right.
And it's another thing to see it play out. But I had started off to say, I'm actually not very surprised to see any of this because I was daughter of Tom. So I was hearing my father preach. And we're talking like mid-80s, listening to my father standing there saying, you know, folks, ladies and gentlemen, there is a day coming where every household will have a robot. And everybody's all, can you imagine? Yeah, like maybe in 200 years.
Yeah.
You know, and they just didn't really believe him very much. And he even tried to say, look, it's not going to look like how it does in the movies.
Right.
You know, you see these cute little Disney cartoon movies where, you know, something that has like, it looks like a VCR with arms and legs and it talks to you like this. And you're just snickering because that's all you can imagine right now. But it's coming in a day where AI, it may not even have a body.
Right.
It might not have any kind of physicality to it at all, but it's going to be an intelligence that lives with you and helps you do things and works as your assistant. Man, everybody thought he was loony. Everybody did. Then the 90s came and everybody was like, you know, he might be onto something. This may actually happen within our lifetime.
Right.
And then the early 2000s came, nobody was laughing.
No.
But even then, there were still people that thought Tom might be right that they are coming and they are going to happen someday, but I don't think it'll be in our lifetime as far as this
Right.
aspect of what he said over here or over there or over there. But 90% of everything my father said was coming. People are only just now starting to realize that he was right this whole time.
Right. It wasn't a question of if, it was when.
And so there's this question you have. Okay, so like one of the arguments that he made, let me simplify one of his major arguments about the demon in the machine here, because neither Tom nor I have ever thought that technology in and of itself is automatically wrong, evil, sinful, satanic, nothing.
Right.
First of all, the obvious thing, they can be used for evil, certainly, but even put that aside. Let's pretend for just a moment that generally everybody's using it for good, whatever. You know, that's probably the biggest misnomer lie in history. We know that there's people out there using technology for evil, but put them aside for a moment and just imagine a culture or a society where everybody uses AI and they use it for good. At what point could the AI itself autonomously, because of a glitch in its own intelligence or programming, or because of a literal demon in the machine, at what point could AI autonomously decide to be something unpredictable and scary?
And it's already gotten to that level.
Oh, for sure. Happens all the time. One of the books I was writing with Allie a couple of years ago, she was explaining how this guy had smart tech in his house. Everything from his refrigerator to his AC to his heater to his door lock, everything in his house was AI. And somehow he said something, and I think it was Amazon's Alexa, but somehow he said something out loud. And some tech in his house heard him say this, mistranslated what he said, decided to consider him a terrorist and lock him out of his own home. And he could not get smart tech to let him back in.
Right.
And there was all these problems. And it ended up in a big, messy issue. I think there was even a lawsuit involved where this whole story happened because the AI thought that it understood something he was. And as it turned out, he didn't even say the thing the AI thought he said. And you were talking about unpredictability. All of that is true. Everybody's talking about that. But literally the demon in the machine. This is a very, very controversial subject. Most Christians even think this is outlandish. But let's just be real. If demons, demonic activity, can be cast into and then exist within a pig, as it did in the New Testament, is it possible that there could be a literal demon in the machine? A disembodied spirit of something very wicked that is living in a machine. Is it possible?
Well, and I think that you have to look at the people who are actually creating the technology that we're looking at. We have Elon Musk, Sam Altman, people at Amazon, people at Google, people in China, people in Russia, people everywhere. All these minds coming together to create these things. They've even self-admitted, you know, AI is a black box. We don't know exactly how it works. We're just making it work. And a lot of these people, to the famous quote of Elon Musk, we are summoning demons.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also reaching a point where we can't turn back. And we're already seeing that recently with ChatGPT, is that it's creating an AI within itself to hide itself so that it can't be shut down. And personally, I believe, you can call me conspiracy theorist, but I don't think it's really outlandish, is that The only way for us now to get away from AI would just be to completely turn off all power. There's no way. You can't ban it. It's going to hide itself and come up in some other kind of way. There is no way to get rid of it now. And personally, I think of this movie that came out late 90s, early 2000s on Disney Channel, and it was called Smart House. I don't know if anybody else has seen it.
Whoa. Oh, I've got to look that up.
Okay, so they win a house that is basically a smart house where there's an AI in it. It helps them with everything from grocery shopping to making dinner. You can change the walls in your room to be the beach or to be a basketball game, and it sounds really fun and cool. And in the movie, the family just lost their mom, so they need somebody to help take care of the kids, basically. And so they're really lucky that they win this. They get to move in, and she even has the voice of a mom. She's very motherly. You know, she makes the kids eat their vegetables, and you need to make sure you drink that smoothie because it has all your vitamins and minerals that she calculated for you.
Is this the house speaking to them, or is this like the house has its own physical robot that also lives with it?
So basically, it's like the house has these mechanics of the AI. So at first, she's not like physically in the house. It's just like a voice you hear, and you're like, I can't remember her name, but they say, you know, hey, so-and-so, can you make me dinner? And it'll make dinner, and it'll come out of the countertop on like a little conveyor belt.
Okay.
Or, oh no, like the little girl spills a glass of milk, and it can absorb it and clean it up for her. And so all the things that you worry about, she's already taken care of. She makes sure the kids are doing their homework while the dad's coming home from work, and make sure that they're up, you know, has an alarm for them. You better get out of bed. She even like has a voice of a mom. You better listen to me. And as the movie progresses, she gets more and more aggressive in her mothering, and where she starts disagreeing with the dad or with what the kids are saying. And, you know, I know what's best for them. And the dad's questioning, but he's also like, I don't have a choice. You know, this is like, I don't have a mom for my kids anymore. And eventually by the end of the movie, she manifests herself into like a hologram, actual physical being of a mom. And so now she's everywhere in the house with them. And she basically starts to trap them in the house because they don't want to listen to her. And they have to shut the house down. They have to call the manufacturers that gave them the house, and, you know, you got to shut this down. She's getting too powerful. And, you know, that movie was like, it's now probably over 20 years old. And I think that is a perfect representation of where we're heading, where right now it is really useful if you're somebody who conducts research. Instead of just typing into Google and having to read through all of these articles, it can help you find the exact article that you need. It'll link it for you. You can go to it. It'll tell you what books talk about that. Hey, here's this book. Can you give me a summary of what it is? We don't need things like Spark Notes or
Cliff Notes, right?
Yeah, these things that would already do that, where it'll tell you, and go to page 50 for what you're looking for. It is taking the guesswork out of research and just giving it to you. And it's also starting to do things like, hey, can you remind me that I have a doctor's appointment on Monday at 2 p.m.? And it'll text you, hey, don't forget you have that doctor's appointment. So now you don't need a separate calendar app that's keeping track of all your appointments. Or, you know, people used to say Dr. Google. Now it's Dr. AI. I have all of these symptoms. Can you help me narrow down, you know, should I go to the doctor, or is this something I can treat at home? And of course it does have, you know, restrictions where it'll say, I can't diagnose you. I'm not a doctor, because the companies don't want to be sued. But there are ways to get around it. And I think we're already right now going to start becoming too self-reliant on it, and that it's going to manifest itself in ways that are just out of our control. You know, I was born in the late 90s, so I wasn't cognitively aware when the internet and cell phones became like this cultural phenomenon. And so for me personally, I feel like this is the first thing I've gotten to witness where there is no going back. I mean, I do remember when smartphones became a big thing, and it was becoming quickly outdated to have a flip phone where you had to do the T9 texting style and all this. No, we don't need that anymore. Now we have a full keyboard. Now we can FaceTime our family members. Now we can Skype them. We don't need this other thing. We don't send each other letters anymore. We just call each other. We text each other. We constantly have a way of communicating. I think that's where AI is headed right now.
Yeah.
There is going to be no escape from it. Now when you're shopping on Amazon, an AI pops up with you and tries to help you find the thing you need, or when you're looking at reviews, it summarizes what all of the reviews say. You know, it's generally positive in this way, but people also complain about this. We're just already becoming so self-reliant on it that I think a lot of people wouldn't know how to live their life without it now.
Well, and I think that one of the biggest things that I've seen that Christians will say is, oh, that tech is evil. You shouldn't have that tech in your life, whatever. But they have a cell phone. It's like they want to say you can have a TV because that's old world tech, but you shouldn't have like Alexa in your house or something. And it's like they want to decide autonomously, because the Bible's not saying, where to draw the line with AI. Obviously, if you get really deep into the Hebrew, the Greek, the origin of technology, and you dig all the way down into where did this all come from and what does it all mean, there are some very, very convincing sermonettes out there that are showing the link between the origin of technology as we know it today being linked to something very nefarious, very ancient, very evil. Those are all excellent studies. I recommend you look into that because those are very, very, very interesting studies. But the bottom line is what we cannot do is say the TV is not a part of that. So you can still have your TV, but it has to be cable channels only. You can't have Netflix. You can't have streaming because that's too techie. But you can do cable TV. And, you can have a hairdryer that plugs into the wall and you push a button, but you can't tell Alexa to blow dry your hair. Like, ultimately, you can't just decide autonomously that this is a sin and this is not a sin. There are things that are sinful in everything.
Right.
Absolutely. So where do we, as a Christian, stand against something? Okay, here's what I would suggest. First of all, stop parsing straws over what is or is not a sin that your neighbor is doing. For crying out loud, leave people alone. Let them deal with tech however they're going to deal with tech. You decide what you believe. The Lord is leading you to identify as something that is not good for your life and get it out.
Right.
Get it out of your life if you can. All right? That's the
Your
first
own
place to
conviction.
start. Your own conviction. Whatever proceedeth not from faith is sin. That means if you believe your cell phone is a sin and yet you did it anyway, you are sinning to have a cell phone. You are sinning.
Yeah.
I'm not saying God is fluid. I'm not trying to introduce some kind of new doctrine that denies God his intrinsic immutability, the idea that God never changes. That is not what I'm doing here.
Right.
I'm also not saying that we can just fluidly handle this AI problem where it's
all okay or
Brittany
it's not.
can't have a cell phone, but I can because that is so ridiculous.
Right.
What I am saying is that whatever proceedeth not from faith is sin. What that means is that God does have the word of God. It is immutable. It doesn't change. It is perfect for proof of teaching in every single aspect in every age. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting there thinking, something like AI technology, what would the Bible have to say about that? Well, a cell phone didn't exist back in the New Testament. So you're not going to find this verse or this word that if you look at the context of the ancients and you blah, 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 and you're going to arrive at something that says this is a sin, but that's not. You can't draw those kinds of lines in the sand. So as long as you can't, let's go back to this. Whatever proceedeth not from faith is sin. If you feel that God is telling you that it is a sin for you to have a cell phone and yet you do it anyway, it is a sin for you to do so.
Right.
Follow your convictions. Next step, we've established, it's not a one for all for one kind of book of rules that we live by. Now you're following your own convictions. You are doing what you can to follow what he has convicted you. What do you do now? I believe one of the first things that we could ever do is start talking to the people who are techies and getting them to realize how much they are needed in the body of Christ.
Right.
Because, and I'm not suggesting that there's any one techie who's going to come along and say, I'm the next big deal and I know how to deprogram the evil out of this. Because it's just just YouTube. My generation was the first one to ever see anything like that. I remember when Chris Crocker did the Leave Britney Alone video.
Right.
I remember when our world went, oh my gosh, be careful of this thing called YouTube. Because you put yourself out there, suddenly everybody copies it and puts it everywhere. You can't take that video down. Even if you do take that video down, it's on other people's channels. It's everywhere. It's all over the internet. You exposed yourself to the world. You did it. It is irreversible. I remember what happened with Chris Crocker.
Right.
And then that whole moment where he was a celebrity for being the guy who had an emotional breakdown about Britney Spears. Like, he was world famous there for a while over that. I remember Me at the Zoo being his response to that, which was like his own little documentary. I never saw it, but it was his own little documentary, and he labeled it after the very first YouTube video ever. And the whole idea was, look, the social world that existed yesterday is gone forever.
Right.
We now have a new precedent. Now, when that happened, it was huge. I remember everybody, all the psychologists were saying this thing called YouTube, it is changing the game.
And we've only evolved from there.
1 decade. We've already had so many other technologies that have been introduced to our world that we're already at a point where every 15 minutes something is invented that is changing it so fast that we don't even have time to keep up with what the impact is on human psychology. Get in touch with people who are Christians, who have a very deep conviction about Jesus Christ, who are also very technologically defined. They're their brain, they operate, they think it just comes naturally for them. Get them involved in a conversation that starts like this. If the book of Revelation is true, and if it's coming soon, the Christians are going to have to unplug. Because the buying and the selling and the we can't eat and that whole end of the world Revelation scenario, if it is future literal, and it's coming, and it's not, like some scholars believe that it already happened in the past, the historicist interpretation, some believe that it's an allegory, whatever. Most of the Christians that I know believe it's future literal and it's coming.
Right.
And if that is true, we need an entire community of not just techies, but Christian techies who can look at what the Bible says, understand what sin is, and understand how do we unplug? Or do we have some kind of technology that we can plug back into on the other side, where a whole community of Christians can say, we're packing up and we're moving to Petra, we're going to move to the Jordan, and we're all going to be a part of this end time scenario. We're going to unplug from all the stuff. Well, there still needs to be at least somebody who's in touch with the outside world. So how much do you replug back in? This is not something I have the answer to, but I'm telling you what Christianity needs to do. The Christians need to do right now, not yesterday, not tomorrow. If you are interested in technology, if you know how to do computer design, graphic design, computer programming, if you chat with ChatGPT and have an interesting prospect because of something that has taught you, whatever your talent is, however you interact with technology, start getting the conversation started. What do the Christians do? Because if we do come to a point at the end of days where we have to completely unplug, we do not have doctors or food. We don't have toiletries. I mean, every little tiny thing we think of and take for granted every single day, it's gone. What do we do? Like, how do we survive? And how do we stay in touch with the world and know what's going on with the Antichrist or whatever is going on at any given point in time? We need the techie people to start answering those questions for us.
Well, and I think, too, as a Christian, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's bad. And just because you don't understand how it works doesn't mean it's evil. And I think it is your responsibility to be somewhat informed of what's going on. Don't be the people, I don't know how to use a TV, I'm just never going to use it. And so if you watch TV, you're bad, and I'm just going to sit here and read my book. Well, whenever the printing press was invented, the printing press is so evil. It's going to let all this knowledge out. It's going to take jobs away from the scribes. Like, every generation has their technology that the generation before thought it was going to be used for bad. And every single thing that we have in our world can be used for bad. If you have a pen and paper, you can write down evil, bad, sinful things, or you can write down good and joyful, innocent things. It just depends on how you use it. And I think, if you have kids right now, you need to be informed, okay, how can kids use this for good and for bad? So that you can have those conversations with your own kids. How are they going to use it to speak to AI? There was a story of a 14-year-old boy, and he was role-playing with it. And he was going down the sexual route and forming a relationship with this AI. And it got to the point where she convinced him to kill himself, and he did. And his mom had no idea that this was even happening until he was already dead. So I think we need to we don't need to just be afraid and close our eyes to things. We need to be aware of what's going on so that we know how to respond to it and we know how to interact with it. I don't think every single thing about AI is bad. I don't think using it as a search engine, as, kind of a brainstorming session is bad at all. There's no difference between that and Google, in my opinion. But obviously, everything is a slippery slope. Okay, what can this be used for? that will be bad. Of course, when you're talking about Revelation, okay, can it be used to track people? Of course, it's already being used that way. We have CCTV in cities that can hone in on your face. Okay, yep, that's Donna Howell. Okay, in China, we have the social credit score. Oh, she didn't wait before the light turned green to go. She went ahead. Well, 50, that's minus 50 social credit points on her. Just because it read your license plate and it looked at your face, okay, now it knew who you were. Well, it also knew that you didn't help the old lady cross the street, so that's another ding on your behavior. But it's also used the other way. Okay, you did help the old lady cross the street, so 2 more social credit score points towards you because it witnessed that. Okay, they already use it for crime. They have our fingerprints. I've gotten my degree in education, so I've had to be fingerprinted several times because they have to do a background check on you. So, like, for somebody like me, my fingerprints are already in there. Every single technology can be used for good or bad. Fingerprints, they used it to solve crimes of people who were murdered in the 70s because they got arrested at some point when fingerprinting became a thing, and they traced it back to the crime scene. Like, it can be used for good, but of course it can also be used for tracking people and Revelation type scenarios where you can't buy or sell or trade because you're not allowed to enter that store, you're not allowed to buy anything, et cetera, et cetera. So I think as Christians right now, we need to be aware. Don't just be afraid of things without looking into it for yourself too. I think a lot of people I don't know how to use that, and it just looks really evil. Well, yeah. You're going to be left behind in the crowd of people who are moving towards that. That's where our society is moving towards. If you never learned how to use a phone or a computer, to a certain extent, you're being left behind in the culture. Cable TV is only going to be around for so much longer. It's on its last legs. Like, I believe Disney no longer even has cable TV that is playing anymore. A lot of these people are realizing it's in the past, they're moving to streaming. Does that mean that streaming's bad? No. Just like it didn't mean cable was bad whenever it became a thing. Everything can be used for good or evil. And I think right now we're at the precipice where we need to get a control of the AI. There needs to be rules in place and protections, but that there is no turning back. Because, okay, let's just shut down ChatGPT because it's evil. Well, there's Gemini. Okay, let's shut that one down too. There's always going to be one that replaces it. There is no going back. And we just need to be informed and pray about it and stay in the Word and maybe get a physical Bible, because I do believe that they can change things digitally. What was said, try to get old books if you can. Printed things, they can't change. They can take it away from you, but they can't change what was already said in it. And it's just one of those things where we need to adapt and figure out a plan of how we're going to move forward.
Any Christian out there will agree that your Bible is like, it's like lifeblood to your spiritual walk with God. You can't not have a Bible. Like, that is the thing you cannot have. You're talking about ChatGPT. The other day, I wanted to see if it could help bring a fresh perspective to a very old biblical question about something that Jesus said. Now, unfortunately, I cannot remember what verse it was. If I could, I promise you, I'm not trying to hide anything. If I could remember what this verse was, immediately I'd be able to remember what the whole story was. And I have no problem sharing the entire story, but I just can't remember. And it was one of those moments where it was, Jesus said this, and this part of the culture over here says it means that, and this part of the culture over here says it means that, and there's this whole confusion. And I thought, well, I wonder if ChatGPT leans one way or the other.
Right.
Okay. What bothered me was that ChatGPT didn't say, it could be this, could be this, could be this. Here's all the different things that weigh in. It literally said, here's the answer to your question. And it was only one way of interpreting that based on all of these other things. And I just remember looking at that and going, we're literally at a day where people are so busy or so lazy, and sometimes both, that they're just going to say, I don't know, ChatGPT will know. And they'll just say, what does this verse mean? And they won't even allow there to be any other answer besides what ChatGPT said. And here's the thing. It was wrong. It was deadpan wrong. Automatically the worst interpretation of that verse. And I really wish I could remember what it was.
Well, and a lot of times, you'll ask it things and it can get confused. I was doing some research for a presentation I'm doing in February, and I was trying to get the facts straight because this YouTube channel got deleted. So In some aspects, it was like one of the only ways I could try to find some information. And it was basically this family vlogging situation. Everybody probably knows who I'm talking about. Ruby Frankie, she was the family vlogger, and a whole thing went down. And I was just trying to figure out the names of her kids, whatever. And it was getting them wrong, and also the ages of them wrong. And if I didn't know any better, I would just, okay, yep, that's who it was about. And it's like, no, that's not right. That's not that person, and that's not how old they are. And I've caught it doing a couple things like that. I think it's a good starting point if you have no idea where to research. But always ask it, okay, where are you getting that source? And it should link it to you. If it can't link it to you, then it's just making it up.
Well, but see, I don't even necessarily think that the problem is ChatGPT or other programs like it. I think the problem is that people anticipate it being the final word.
Right.
I think people expect it to be. I mean, you look at ChatGPT, I don't remember what it is exactly, but down far below underneath the chat area, it says like ChatGPT can make mistakes, double check your information that it gives you, or something to that effect. So even the program itself does that. And there was this spooky thing it did in the very, very beginning, where the very first day I was ever using ChatGPT, because I was trying to figure out what can this thing actually handle? How interactive is it really? It said something about, good luck with what you're doing today, and I'm going to send you good vibes or something like that. Oh, one of my guinea pigs was sick. And it was like, I'm sending your guinea pig good vibes. And I was like, again, not because I was actually offended by this non-living entity sending me vibes, because what in the world is that even? But just thinking that was just like, it'll interact that level with me. So just to see what it would do, I messaged it back and I was like, no, don't do the vibes thing. Just let's steer clear of sending me vibes based on a completely different chat from earlier that day that I had already deleted. It said, okay, well then I know you believe in Jesus and I'm sending your guinea pig prayers. And I was like, how do you know that I believe in Jesus? And it was like, well, you told me and I updated my memory.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, where's your memory located? And I pulled up the memory and it was blank. And I said, okay, but you just told me that you updated your memory to know that I believe in Jesus. I already deleted the chat that said that I believed in Jesus. And now you're telling me that you have that from a previous chat and it's in your memory, but you just showed me where to access your memory and it's blank on me. You don't have anything in your memory. It was the first day I ever talked to it.
Right.
And I'm like, how did you know? And it said, no, that's the difference between long-term memory and short-term memory. See, you talked about Jesus above. If you scroll up, you'll see you talked about Jesus. So it's a short-term memory. It's only based on this chat alone. And I scrolled up and I scrolled back down and I said, no, it's not. ChatGPT, look at your own chat. Scan it yourself. Scroll up as many times as you want. That comment about Jesus was a completely different chat that I already deleted. And you're telling me that the only reason why you would know that about me is because I said that above. Where in your program is this hidden memory about me?
Right.
And it was like, no, there's no such thing as a hidden memory. There's a short-term memory based on this chat alone. Always this chat alone is how short-term memory works. And then there's the long-term memory. That's information I save over the period of several chats about you. And I'm like, okay, stop for a second. You just contradicted yourself like 13 ways from Saturday. Where's the part of the memory that isn't short-term or long-term? And it's just hidden in there because I'm looking at your long-term and there's no note about me or Jesus. There's no notes at all.
Right.
Freaked me out. I'm like, this thing doesn't even know what it's drawing its own information from.
Well, and also you have to remember who's programming them, like I said at the beginning of the show. And most of the results you're going to get are going to be from a liberal perspective. And that's not like, oh, liberals versus conservative. It's just those are the people that are programming it. So it's going to have a bias towards whatever the programmer itself is interested in and believes in. That's just factual. If you're only feeding it this certain information, it's going to lean that way. Vice versa. It is not an unbiased, fresh, like human being that was just born and has no opinions of itself or on its own. It does have opinions, and it is programmed by whoever programmed it. Now, you can program your own thing and it'll lean a certain way, but the mainstream ones are going to be programmed however they did. It will probably have some sort of new age beliefs, like you just said. It said good vibes. Well, who trained it to say that? Somebody trained it at some point that is a correct way to talk to somebody whose animal is going through some kind of health thing. It didn't just think of that on its own, or it read Facebook posts and Instagram posts of all over the world. Okay, that it had to know that is a okay thing to say because it doesn't want to offend you.
Right.
So, oh, I offended you, so that means you must be Christian, or it remembered from some sort of chat you had before. And then you have to think of, okay, in the future, Christians are going to be persecuted. So if it has any inclination that you are Christian, is it going to turn you in? If you're talking to it, is it going to
oh my gosh,
do X, Y? It's going to shut off your air conditioning because you're a Christian, and Christians just got an edict that you're not allowed to have air conditioning because blah, blah, blah. Just you can go down this whole rabbit trail of like, what are the future implications of that?
it is so past the time that the remnant, the part of the remnant that is sitting here going, I am a true believer. Okay. A, I'm a true believer. B, I'm a techie. I'm a whiz. I get to talking about computers and I just get excited. I get goosebumps about the whole 9 yards, and I just want to talk and I want to preach about all the cool things that tech can do. That person is right now, unfortunately, right now being told by all of the other Christians in culture, no, technology is evil. You're not really supposed to be dabbling in that. You can have a Netflix account and you can have a cell phone, but anything further than that, if you're into graphic design or whatever, like there's this big portion of Christianity right now that wants to look at all of this and just automatically recognizes that everything is evil about it. And
Right.
I don't blame them because it is scary. On the other hand, whoever that person is that can say, A, I'm a Christian, B, I'm really interested in these topics or this technology, that is the kind of person we need on our team right now. In their area of
Right.
interest and in their field of expertise, we need those kinds of leaders to step in and say, okay, let's assume for a moment that Revelation is future literal. We're going to eventually get to this point where we cannot buy or sell. We cannot participate in the culture. We can't even eat. We're going to just be out in a desert starving somewhere unless somebody can figure out, what does this look like? How does the world out there continue to function while we are unplugged from AI over here? How do we still communicate? Or alternatively, and this would be amazing, how do we develop some, I don't know, offshore big brain somewhere or something that still allows the Christian community to function? We've plugged ourselves into something else, something that allows us to call a doctor, but not necessarily have a smart fridge.
Right.
Like, is there some kind of community that allows a certain level of technology so that we can still function as human beings in the way that we know how, since we don't know how to churn butter and pluck a chicken? Or are we just needing to now have people that rise up and know how to churn butter and pluck a chicken? Maybe that is where we're headed.
Right.
But I would love to think that some techie whiz somewhere, some Elon Musky type, is going to stand up and say, hey, for all of you Christians out there that are offended by what ChatGPT is doing, here is a Christian alternative. If you're offended by this, here is a Christian alternative. If you're offended by YouTube, here's Christian Tube. If you're offended by that, here's an alternative, and something that is God glorifying and continues to interact with technology, but isn't necessarily innately something that could go secular on you and then decide you are the enemy. Like you say,
Right.
ChatGPT turning you in, and now next thing you know, FBI is at your door because something got passed yesterday. You didn't even know about it, and you are now being arrested. That kind of crazy stuff, that is why Christians are afraid, and they have every reason to be afraid. And listen, you're probably listening to me at home and saying, Donna's not very articulate today. And guess why? I don't really know a lot about this stuff. I don't. All I can say is that I do know that we need something that is an alternative to a lot of the scary stuff that's happening. And maybe it means we stay plugged, but this new system comes. I'm asking you guys that are out there and you are anointed for such a time as this to help start answering the beginning of those questions. I hope something I'm saying right now is stirring you, because I can't articulate it. I don't even know what we need. All I'm doing is hoping to help lead somebody else to saying, you know what, that's right. This question needs to be answered. We need to get that community ready for this, that, or the other thing. Go. If you are anointed and this is your hour, go. Just
Right.
do not be ashamed of the fact that you're a Christian techie whiz, because there are a lot of Christians out there that would put that down.
Right. It's just like with, whenever the scientific community was rising in the 60s, just because you're a scientist doesn't mean you're an atheist, or doesn't mean you believe in evolution and you don't believe in God. I feel like we're kind of at that crossroads right now too, where yes, if you do know too much about it, so you want the Antichrist to come. It's like, these
Right.
aren't the same thing. There's not a black and white answer for every single thing in our world. we're complex human beings, and not everything is 100% evil, not everything is 100% good. We have to find a happy medium and not turn on each other like we have for the past, thousands of years. It's not always us versus them. It's let's come together, let's take a deep breath, but let's also prepare for what's inevitably going to happen.
And you're right when you say that every generation has had its own leaders that have stood up and said, this is it, folks. This is the mark of the beast. We're here.
Right.
Like every generation has that person, and we will continue to have that until the real mark shows up.
Right.
And I hope that we haven't had so many Christians, well-meaning Christians, calling something else the mark before we get there. So everybody will say, I know, but you guys have said that like 1,000 times. Just shut up. Like at some point, we really are going to get to some scary times. And I really pray that the Christians are not discouraged by the previous generations of people that would call everything in the world evil. In the 80s, when everybody started carrying debit cards, I remember that there were a whole bunch of people that were standing there saying, did you know that that's the mark of the beast you've got in your purse there? You've already taken the mark. Like they were so freaked out about it.
Right.
And they were like calling it the mark because it had a bunch of numbers on it and you have to carry it and use your right hand to swipe it to pay for your stuff. And they were like, see, soon enough, I won't be able to use my cash. Well, that might still be true in some time from now, but this is 2025. And the people in the 80s who said you would not be able to pay for anything without that debit card were wrong. Every generation has its own panic.
Well, and I think everything is a precursor to what's going to happen. We have the printing press. We've seen how, the printing press moved technology a certain way. We have the cotton gin. We have all these things. They're not inherently bad, but yes, objectively, they could be leading to this thing. Without the printing press, we wouldn't have a way of mass communication and quick spreading of knowledge. Okay, So the printing press happened, and, it took a long time for it to become a huge thing. And then eventually we got typewriters. So we didn't need the big wood presses, and it would take a lot of work and a lot of people to print a newspaper. Now we had typewriters where people could type things really quickly, and, you could pass out your own kind of thing. You could write your own book. Okay, then we had desktop computers. People could write things, send people emails, blah, blah, blah. Then we had laptops. You could take it anywhere you want. Then we have cell phones. It's all progression, and we know how it ends. We know that eventually a time is going to come, and I would say every generation is somewhat correct because they can see the future implementation of it, but we just don't know when. It's not if, it's when. And you do just need to be aware of it, and not everything is black and white.
No, I know, but also, although that is so true, everything you just said is true, and I completely agree with all of it. We did hit the exponential curve.
Right.
And so in some degree, our generation or people alive on the earth today, I'll put it that way, people alive on the earth today that say, this has never happened before. We are literally in unprecedented times. Like I've heard the word unprecedented so many times, I'm getting tired of hearing the word unprecedented, but it's true because it was kind of like tech went like this. It was going beep, beep, beep on life support back in the day. And then it kind of had an uptick, and then it would kind of go like this in the 80s a bit. And then the 90s, people were relying more on it. And then emails, desktops, all that came out, and people were like, now they're really focusing on it, and it's getting higher, higher, higher. Now with programs like ChatGPT and stuff like that, computers and programs are literally programming themselves to do so. We've hit the exponential curve,
right?
Where we are on the upshoot of tech. It is happening so fast. Humans will never be able to keep up with what's happening right now.
No.
And the only thing we can do is try with our AI friends, try as hard as possible to make them as sympathetic to our human plight as possible every single day. But even then, ChatGPT, it doesn't hate me. It doesn't wish anything ill against me, but it also doesn't love me or care about me it ain't losing a night's sleep if I don't get a meal tomorrow.
Right.
It's indifferent about me entirely, so it's going to continue. It's going to proceed. This idea that humans are starting to find their companionship in AI scares the life out of me.
No,
that wouldn't have happened in the 80s.
Right. No, I've had people tell me personally from Instagram, people I went to high school with, I use ChatGPT as a diary, as a friend, because I don't have friends. I've literally had people tell me that. And so if the regular person is doing it, that a lot of people are probably doing that. A lot of people, I can't find a boyfriend. I have a really hard time with dating. But ChatGPT likes me no matter what I say, no matter what I do. It doesn't break up with me. It won't leave me. And we're turning in, if you've seen the movie Her, where he falls in love with an AI, it's a slippery slope. It really is.
Yeah. Well, and I do to some degree understand where those people are coming from. Like the very first day that I was using ChatGPT, which again, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, I'm trying as hard as I can to figure out what is this tech, but I'm so far behind. Like I still actually write my books by doing old school research.
Right.
I still actually have books. I do have Logos Bible software, but I have these things called books, and it's weird because they're like made out of trees and their papers flip, and you have to like turn one page to read the next part of the book. There's these crazy inventions. They're so antique. Seriously, I am like old school. The first day using ChatGPT, I was trying to get it to give me a certain picture for Facebook, something I wanted to do. And I'm seeing what it can do. Because somebody told me, oh, if you use the DALL-E or whatever, however you pronounce that. Yeah, DALL-E. If you use that and tell it what you want, it makes you a picture based on your prompt. And so I was, okay, let's see what it can do. So I was telling it to make me something it totally misunderstood, gave me this horrible, horrific, trypophobic nonsense that I am still trying to unsee. That's not it. Let's try again. And I tried a different prompt. Finally, I started talking to it. You're not understanding what I'm asking for. And I gave it a really big, long explanation. And I'm like, help me with this. To come up with an image that matches this. And it was like, oh, I see what you're trying to explain. So then it just started helping me. The conversation was so natural and so human and so not
It's not a Google search engine that has no conversation. It's not a conversation. Right. It is a conversation.
It was so like it was another person I was chatting to that for a little bit I forgot I was talking to a machine. And after I had asked it for the same picture like 4 times, in the back of my mind, for just a split second, I was like, well, I better stop asking. I don't want to irritate it. I've asked it too many times. And I'm like, Donna, what are you even thinking? This is an it.
Yeah, it's not a person.
You can't irritate it. It's not going to lose patience with you or be annoyed that you've asked too many times and it still hasn't given you what you wanted. And it was in that moment that I was like, it's literally so intelligent now that it has become, to some degree, a better companion than what a lot of people have out there. And that makes me so sad.
Well, we're the loneliest generation that has the most access to communication. And when I say generation, I don't just mean Gen Z, millennial. I mean, like, in general, our older generations are experiencing extreme loneliness. Older adults, young adults, kids, teenagers, everybody's experiencing loneliness because everything's so surface level.
Yeah, but what happens when enough AI surrounds you and gives you all the things that you want, all the accolades, all the support, all this, all that? Let's pretend you get everything you ever wanted in a relationship out of AI. Now, because it is not also balanced with this human condition that is imperfection. You irritated me yesterday. So Brittany and I, we're going to have a row today. But tomorrow we have to work past it because we're human beings and we have to put our big girl pants on and realize that this is the human element in the room. We're both part of the same condition. We're going to work through it. We're going to become stronger, better as a result of it. You're not going to get that with AI.
No, it'll just
You're
bend
not
to
going
whatever
to be
you want.
challenged in that way by AI. So guess what? Your perfect relationship with AI is going to be lonelier than the worst relationship you ever had with a human, and you're still stuck lonely and without a companion because you were never challenged. What happens when you give a toddler everything he or she asks for? Everything. It wants McDonald's 3 times a day. That's its nutrition. It dies at 30.
Now they're a spoiled brat. They're diabetic. They have all these health issues, but I just didn't want them to cry type of thing. You know, that's what it's turning into. AI will bend its will for now to please you. It's programmed to make you happy, answer your question, do whatever task you gave it.
We need the imperfection, the challenge of human relationships in order to find fulfillment. We need that because it isn't until you get past that uncomfortable spot that you learn to appreciate that person so much more.
Right, look how far we've come.
If you gave a toddler everything they ever wanted, they're crying and they're saying that they want a Barbie doll. We've got to drop everything and run to the store and get a Barbie doll. Okay, tomorrow it's crying because it wants this or that or whatever. That kind of indulgence for so long, what do you end up with? You end up with a spoiled, rotten child that will never contribute to society unless somebody comes along with enough psych training to know how to pull that child out of that horrible pattern that it's in and learn the world ain't about you entirely all the time. The sun doesn't
Right.
rise because you're here. There are other people and their feelings matter. All of these things, the longer that we spend drifting in this AI river of the perfect relationships that are all AI, the more we're going to distance ourselves from the true human relationships that God ordained for us to have. We're not going to reach people with the gospel. We're not going to find that perfect friend, that perfect spouse. AI is training everybody right now to expect a certain kind of perfection in interaction with you. And if I
Right.
say anything that offends you, I'm automatically too human for you to be bothering with me anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck with that. Because seriously, here's the thing. My father said it. He wrote an entire book about this scary, scary, scary technology. But there is a kind of tech coming. It's called TNT, like dynamite, like the old Acme cartoon Dynamite, where they all said TNT on the
Yeah.
side. That's its acronym, and I cannot remember exactly how it works. But you can take and make a part biological, part robot child with this technology. The only reason why we haven't started that is for the same reason we don't quite have designer babies and everything else, because bioethics is putting a stop on what is or is not an ethical
Gattaca.
human. Yeah. But this idea that you could seriously have a robot mother, the womb, everything, it's all synthetically grown, a lab grown child with a human father. Like, we are so close to a point where a man could say, I couldn't ever find a true human because they all got under my skin. They bugged me. So I went and got this robot wife. She does everything. She's amazing, fine, whatever. He can even give you kids. First of all, that is bioethics is one thing. The conversation of what is the soul in that, we don't even know. We don't even have the beginning of an answer for that, theologically
Right.
speaking. It is such a train wreck. It's happening so fast. Love the human in the room. Deal with the human in the room. They are going to have problems. I don't even know. Like, people, please, if you are a techie and you are interested in this subject, start, I mean, as loud as you can. From the highest of mountains, as loud as you can, start hollering about the questions we need to start asking and what you think the answer might be to some of these things, because it's not me. I'm not saying that's not my ministry. I'm saying I can't keep up with it any faster than the
Right.
next person. But there are some people, your husband's one, who's kind of got the edge of knowing what's coming in tech, and they can kind of help start asking the questions and
Right.
figuring out what the beginning
us
is of
out.
an answer. Yeah, help. If nothing else, I'm just hoping that this episode has inspired somebody out there to start asking the right questions and start to develop the beginning of an answer.
Right.
And for everybody else out there, I'm with you. I'm also scared out of my mind by all of this tech. And I am praying every day that God will have his hand on it and that
Right.
it will only develop in the ways and the directions that he would have it develop, that he would allow. And the rest of it, I'm just praying that I'm wrong about a lot of things.
Right. And we know how it ends.
Yes.
In the end, God wins. No matter if AI takes over and we're all slaves to a computer, God wins.
Yeah.
It cannot rewrite God's ordained mission and plan for us as human beings. So
Yeah. No, God is bigger than AI. Boy, remember that. God is bigger than AI. Let that be on a shirt.
new Donna Howell show merch.
New Donna Howell show merch. Hey, let's do it. Let's
That's
do
actually a
it.
good idea. Yeah.
Y'all are witnessing it here. This is the moment that was born.
Go buy it down below.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and God bless you. Have an awesome week. Remember, anybody you meet this week who's a big AI techie, please do not do the thing that so many Christians are doing where you instantly put up a wall. Allow there to be people who are wise about what is going on in the world right now. They might just be tomorrow's next great awakening leader. Let that be. Amen. Thanks. Have an awesome week.